The police report said it was a gang shootout. The news called it a random act of violence at one of New York's most exclusive restaurants. But they were both wrong. What happened on that rainy Tuesday night wasn't random. It was a response. A response to a silent scream. When Bella, a terrified waitress, caught the eye of Dante Moretti, the most feared man in the city, she didn't scream. She just tucked her thumb into her palm and trapped it with her fingers, a universal signal for help. Most men would have hesitated. Most would have looked away. But Dante Moretti didn't wait a second. He burned the world down just to get her out. Here is the true story of the signal that started a war. The air inside Vittorio's on Bleecker Street always smelled of truffle oil, expensive cologne, and suppressed fear. It was the kind of place where politicians dined with sharks, and nobody asked where the money for the $300 steaks came from. Bella Russo adjusted her apron, her hands trembling so violently that the silverware on her tray rattled like wind chimes. She was 22, with dark circles under her eyes that even concealer couldn't hide. She wasn't just tired, she was hunted. She glanced toward table 4. Sitting there, picking his teeth with a relentless arrogance, was Detective Marcus Vane. He wasn't just a cop. He was a badge-wearing predator on the payroll of the Volkov Syndicate. He had been coming in every night for a week, leaving $10 tips and whispered threats. "Friday, Bella," Vane mouthed, catching her eye. He tapped his wrist, signaling the time. "Or your little sister Mia. She goes away." Bella felt the bile rise in her throat. Vane claimed her late father owed the Volkovs 50 grand. Bella didn't have 50 grand. She barely had rent. "Bella!" The floor manager Giuseppe hissed, snapping his fingers. "Table 1. VIP. The owner called. Treat him like he's God or you're out." Bella swallowed hard, nodded, and grabbed the reserve wine list. She walked toward the corner booth, the darkest spot in the restaurant, shielded by velvet curtains. 3 men sat there. 2 were built like tank suits, straining against muscle eyes, scanning every corner of the room. But the man in the middle, he was different. Dante Moretti. Even Bella, who kept her head down to survive, knew the name. The press called him a logistics consultant. The streets called him Il Santo the Saint, because you usually met God shortly after crossing him. He was younger than the rumors suggested, maybe 32, with sharp aristocratic features and eyes the color of burnt espresso. He wasn't loud like Vane. He possessed a terrifying silent gravity. "The Barolo 1996, Dante said. His voice was deep, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. He didn't look at the menu. He looked at her. "Yes, sir," Bella whispered. As she turned to leave, she felt a heavy hand grip her wrist. It wasn't Dante. It was Vane. He had gotten up from his table and intercepted her on the floor. The restaurant went quiet, but people pretended not to see. That was the rule in New York. Don't see what you can't fix. "You ignoring me, sweetheart?" Vane sneered, his grip tightening enough to bruise. "I told you, Friday, I want to know you understand." "Please," Bella gasped, trying to pull away. "You're hurting me. I'm working." "You're working for me now," Vane hissed, leaning in, smelling of stale scotch and cigars. "Maybe I'll take Mia as a down payment tonight." Tears pricked Bella's eyes. She looked around. Giuseppe was staring at the floor. The other patrons were studying their risottos. No one was coming. Except she felt a gaze burning into the back of her neck. She looked past Vane's shoulder. In the corner booth, Dante Moretti had stopped talking to his men. He was watching. His face was unreadable, a mask of stone, but his body was completely still. Bella knew she had 1 second before Vane dragged her out or caused a scene that would get her fired and killed. She looked directly at Dante. She didn't cry out. She raised her free hand chest high. She opened her palm. She tucked her thumb inside. She trapped her thumb with her fingers. The signal. It was a TikTok trend, to some, a lifesaver to others. To Dante Moretti, it was a trigger. The moment her fingers closed over her thumb, the air in the restaurant seemed to shatter. Dante didn't stand up slowly. He didn't clear his throat. One moment he was seated. The next, a heavy crystal water glass launched across the room with the velocity of a baseball pitch. Crash! The glass shattered against the side of Marcus Vane's head. The detective crumbled, blood spraying onto the white tablecloths. Screams erupted. Patrons dove under tables. Before Vane's body even hit the floor, Dante was moving. He moved with a lethal grace, crossing the dining room in 3 long strides. His 2 bodyguards were instantly up, guns drawn, but held low, securing the perimeter. Vane groaned, reaching for his service weapon in his shoulder holster. Dante didn't break stride. He stepped onto Vane's wrist with a sickening crack crushing the bones. Vane screamed a high-pitched sound that cut through the panic. Dante ignored him. He stood in front of Bella, towering over her. Up close, he smelled of rain and expensive leather. He looked at her shaking hands, then at the bruise forming on her wrist where Vane had grabbed her. His eyes darkened, shifting from brown to black. "Did he touch you anywhere else?" Dante asked. His voice wasn't loud, but it was the only sound Bella could hear. No, she stammered. "Silas," Dante said, not looking away from Bella. One of the bodyguards, a scarred man with a shaved head, stepped forward. "Boss." "Bag the trash," Dante said, gesturing to the moaning detective on the floor. "And get the car. We're leaving." "Me," Bella squeaked. Dante finally touched her. He placed a hand gently on her back, a stark contrast to the violence he had just inflicted. "You gave the signal, Piccola. You asked for help. You don't get to back out now." Sirens wailed in the distance. The NYPD was coming. "My sister." Bella gasped, realization hitting her. "Mia, she's at the apartment. If Vane doesn't check in." Dante's jaw tightened. He pulled a phone from his pocket. "Address. Now." 440 West 42nd, apartment 4B. Dante spoke into the phone. "Luca, 440 West 42nd. Secure the girl. Mia, bring her to the safe house. Use the heavy team. Go." He hung up and looked at Bella. "Let's go." Dante wrapped his suit jacket around her shoulders. It was heavy and warm, and guided her out the back exit into the pouring rain, leaving the chaos of Vittorio's behind. As the black SUV screeched up to the alley, Bella realized she hadn't just asked for a rescue. She had just walked willingly into the devil's sanctuary. The interior of the armored Cadillac Escalade was silent, save for the rhythmic thump-thump of the windshield wipers fighting the New York downpour. Bella sat pressed against the leather door, her knees pulled to her chest. She was still wearing her waitress uniform, now soaked with rain, but Dante's jacket engulfed her. Dante sat on the other side of the bench seat. He was scrolling through a tablet, the blue light illuminating the sharp angles of his face. He seemed completely unbothered by the fact that he had just assaulted a police detective in a room full of witnesses. "Drink," he said, extending a bottle of water toward her without looking up. Bella took it, her fingers brushing his. His skin was warm. "Is he?" Is Vane dead? Dante finally looked up. Not yet. Death is easy, Bella. Men like Vane, they require a conversation first. Bella shivered. He works for the Volkovs. They own the precinct. You can't just beat up a cop. Dante let out a dry, humorless chuckle. The Volkovs are tourists in this city. They think fear is a currency. They don't realize that I own the bank. He paused, studying her face. Why did you signal me? Bella lowered the water bottle. You looked like the only thing in that room scarier than him. A flicker of amusement crossed Dante's lips. An honest answer. I like that. The car swerved smoothly as it exited the highway and headed toward Tribeca. My sister, Bella whispered. Are you sure? Luca is my best lieutenant, Dante interrupted softly. If he says he will get her, he will get her. Mia is safe. The car pulled into the underground garage of a massive glass tower. This wasn't a warehouse or a shady bunker. This was the Spire, one of the most expensive residential buildings in Manhattan. Come, Dante said, as the door opened. They took a private elevator that had no buttons, only a retinal scanner. When the doors opened, Bella gasped. The penthouse was a sprawling fortress of glass and steel overlooking the entire city. The lights of the skyline twinkled below like scattered diamonds. It was beautiful but cold. Silas, Dante barked as they walked in. Get Dr. Aris here. Check her wrist. I'm fine, Bella insisted, though her wrist was throbbing blue and purple. You are under my protection, Dante said, turning to face her. He took off his tie, unwinding it slowly. That means your pain is my failure, and I do not fail. The intensity in his voice made Bella's breath hitch. Suddenly, the elevator chimed again. The doors slid open, and a young girl with messy pigtails and a backpack ran out. Bella. Mia. Bella dropped to her knees as her 10-year-old sister tackled her. They hugged fiercely. Mia was shaking. Behind Mia stood Luca, a giant of a man who looked like he wrestled bears for fun. He gave Dante a sharp nod. 2 Volkov soldiers were waiting in the lobby of your building, boss. We neutralized the threat. The kid didn't see anything. Bella buried her face in Mia's hair, trying to hide her tears. They were safe. But as she looked up, she saw Dante standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the rain-soaked city. He was on the phone. Yes, Dante said into the receiver, his voice dropping an octave. Burn it. He hung up. Burn what? Bella asked, standing up, holding Mia's hand. Dante turned. Vittorio's, the restaurant. Bella's eyes widened. You burned down the restaurant? Why? Because that's where he touched you, Dante said simply, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. And to send a message to the Volkovs. The war has started. Bella felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. She had thought this was a rescue. She realized now it was an acquisition. Who are you? She whispered. Really? Dante walked over to a wet bar and poured a glass of amber liquid. He took a sip, his eyes locking onto hers. Your father, Dante said, was Antonio Russo, correct? Bella stiffened. Yes, he died 2 years ago. Heart attack. It wasn't a heart attack, Dante said. And he didn't owe the Volkovs money. He was holding something for them, something they want back, and they think you have it. I don't know what you're talking about, Bella cried. I'm just a waitress. No. Dante stepped closer, invading her personal space, his presence overwhelming. You are the daughter of the best cryptographer the underworld ever saw. And whether you know it or not, Bella, you are the key to $1 billion. He reached out and gently brushed a wet strand of hair from her cheek. Vane wasn't going to kill you, Dante murmured. He was going to torture you until you remembered something you didn't know you forgot. That is why you stay here. That is why you belong to me now. Belong, Bella challenged, finding a spark of courage. I'm not a possession. Dante leaned down, his lips inches from her ear. Until the Volkovs are dead, you are whatever I say you are. Tonight, you are the guest. Tomorrow, we will see. Suddenly, the lights in the penthouse flickered. The high-tech security system let out a low, warning hum. Silas tapped his earpiece, his face going pale. Boss, Silas said, his voice tight. We have a breach. The elevator override. Someone is coming up. Dante's eyes snapped toward the elevator doors. How? This is a fortress. They have the passcodes, Silas said, pulling his weapon. Only 3 people have those codes. You, me, and Luca. Dante spun around his gun, appearing in his hand like a magic trick. He aimed it directly at Luca, the man who had just brought Mia in. Luca stood by the window, a sad smile on his face. He held a detonator in his hand. I'm sorry, Dante, Luca said. The Volkovs. They have my mother. Get down! Dante roared, shoving Bella and Mia behind the heavy marble kitchen island. Boom! The elevator doors didn't open. They exploded. Smoke filled the room. Men in tactical gear rappelled through the shattered windows. Stay down, Dante commanded Bella, his voice fierce. If you move, you die. He vaulted over the couch, firing 2 shots into the smoke. The rescue was over. The siege had begun. The penthouse moments ago, a sanctuary of silence and wealth, had dissolved into a war zone. The air was thick with the acrid smell of drywall dust and cordite. The explosion had blown the heavy steel elevator doors off their tracks and through the smoking aperture. 4 men in black tactical gear poured into the living room, their submachine guns spitting fire. Keep your heads down! Dante roared, his voice cutting through the deafening noise. He was a blur of motion, while Silas provided covering fire from behind a grand piano. Dante didn't retreat. He advanced. He moved with a terrifying precision, firing double taps that dropped 2 of the intruders before they could clear the entryway. Bella huddled behind the marble island, pressing Mia's face into her chest. Count to 10, Mia. Just count to 10, she sobbed, though she couldn't hear her own voice over the gunfire. Glass shattered everywhere. The floor-to-ceiling windows designed to withstand hurricane winds were spiderwebbing under the barrage of bullets. Luca! Dante screamed, diving behind a leather armchair as wood chips exploded around him. Call them off. You know they'll kill the girl too. Luca stood frozen near the window, the detonator still in his hand, his eyes wide with panic. He looked at the Volkov mercenaries, then at Mia's trembling form, peeking out from behind the kitchen island. They promised... Luca stammered, his voice breaking. They promised no collateral damage. One of the mercenaries turned his weapon toward the kitchen, aiming directly at where Bella and Mia were hiding. Something snapped in Luca. The betrayal on his face shifted into a mask of pure rage. He realized too late that he had sold his soul to liars. No! Luca bellowed. He didn't run. He charged the mercenary, tackling the man just as he pulled the trigger. Bullets sprayed the ceiling instead of the girls. Luca drew a knife from his boot, driving it into the attacker's neck, but the other two mercenaries turned their guns on him. Thud, thud, thud. Luca jerked violently as 3 rounds took him in the chest. He collapsed, gasping blood, pooling rapidly on the pristine white rug. "Luca!" Silas yelled, breaking cover to fire, taking down the remaining shooters. For a second, there was silence, just the ringing in Bella's ears, and the sound of the rain whipping into the room through the shattered windows. Dante was at Luca's side in an instant. He knelt, ignoring the glass shards digging into his expensive trousers. He grabbed his former lieutenant's vest, pulling him up. "Where is the second wave?" Dante demanded, his voice hard, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of pain. "Luca, look at me. Where are they coming from?" Luca coughed, pink foam bubbling on his lips. "Roof," he wheezed. "Chopper. 5 minutes. They have thermal." He gripped Dante's wrist with a bloody hand. "My mom, Volkov said she's at the warehouse. Docks. She's dead." "Luca," Dante said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Volkov killed her 2 days ago. You betrayed us for a ghost." The realization broke Luca's eyes before death did. He let out a ragged breath, and his hand slid off Dante's arm. Gone. Dante closed Luca's eyes. He stood up, his face wiped clean of emotion. He was no longer a man. He was a general. "Silas, status," Dante barked. "Shoulders clipped. I'm functional." Silas grunted, wrapping a cloth napkin tight around his bleeding upper arm. "But we can't go down. Elevators are fried. Stairwell is compromised." "We go out," Dante said, striding toward the broken window. Bella stood up, pulling Mia with her. "Out. We're on the 45th floor. Are you insane?" Dante grabbed a heavy duffel bag from a hidden panel in the wall. He tossed it to Silas. Then he turned to Bella, his eyes burning with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Do you trust me?" "I don't even know you," Bella cried, hysteria bubbling up. "You signaled me," Dante reminded her, stepping close, grabbing her shoulders. "You pulled the trigger. Now let me be the bullet. Look at me." She looked. In the chaos, he was the only steady thing in the world. "There is a construction scaffold on the adjacent building," Dante said rapidly. "It's 15 feet down, 10 feet across. We are going to jump." "I can't," Mia whimpered. "You won't have to," Dante said. He scooped Mia up in one arm as if she weighed nothing. He looked at Bella. "Silas will go first. He will catch you. I will follow with Mia. Go." Silas didn't hesitate. He ran to the ledge, gauged the distance through the driving rain, and leaped. Bella screamed as he disappeared into the darkness. A sickening second later, a clang of metal on metal echoed up. "Clear!" Silas's voice shouted from below. "Bella," Dante said. "Run! Jump! Don't look down!" Bella looked at the drop. The cars below were tiny streaks of light. The wind howled. If she missed, she would be nothing but a stain on the pavement. But behind her, she heard the thwoop, thwoop, thwop of a helicopter approaching. The Volkovs were here. She looked at Dante holding her sister. She took a breath. She ran. She threw herself into the void. For a heartbeat, she was flying. The rain stung her face. Then impact. She slammed into the metal grating of the scaffold, the air rushing out of her lungs. Strong hands grabbed her vest and hauled her back before she could bounce off. Silas dragged her to the center of the platform. "Got you," he grunted. Above them, Dante stood on the ledge of the penthouse, Mia clinging to his neck. The helicopter rose into view, a spotlight blindingly bright sweeping the apartment. "Jump!" Bella screamed into the rain. Dante leaped. He hit the scaffolding hard, rolling instantly to absorb the impact, shielding Mia with his body. They skidded across the wet metal, coming to a stop near the construction elevator. Mia was crying, but she was unhurt. Dante stood up, shaking the water from his hair. He looked up at his penthouse. Men were rappelling from the helicopter into his living room. "Let's go," Dante said, ushering them into the construction lift. Before they looked down. As the rickety cage descended, Bella watched the spire disappear into the mist. Her old life, the waitressing, the debt, the fear of Detective Vane was gone. She was falling into Dante's world now. And the scariest part wasn't the height. It was that she felt safer in this cage with a killer than she ever had in the freedom of the city. The safe house wasn't a house. It was a decommissioned textile factory in Yonkers, a brick behemoth rotting by the river. Dante drove the stolen sedan, a nondescript Honda. They had hot-wired 3 blocks from the spire into the loading bay. The heavy iron door rattled shut behind them, sealing them in darkness until Dante flipped a breaker switch. Industrial halogen lights flickered on, revealing a space that was surprisingly habitable. There were leather couches, a stocked medical bay, rows of servers, humming in a climate-controlled glass room, and an arsenal of weapons on the wall that would make the National Guard jealous. "Silas," Dante said, killing the engine. "Medical, stitch that shoulder. Then check the perimeter sensors." "On it, boss." Silas said, his face pale, but his jaw set. He grabbed a med kit and vanished into a side room. Dante turned to Bella and Mia in the back seat. "We are safe here. For tonight." Bella opened the door, her legs feeling like jelly. She helped Mia out. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a cold, shaking exhaustion. Is there a bathroom?" Bella asked quietly. "Mia needs to wash up." Dante pointed to a door on the left. "Clean towels, hot water. There's food in the kitchenette. Get her settled." Bella nodded, avoiding his eyes. She took Mia into the bathroom. She spent 20 minutes washing the drywall dust out of her sister's hair and whispering reassurances she didn't feel. Once Mia was fed a sandwich and asleep on one of the plush sofas under a heavy wool blanket, Bella stepped away. She found Dante in the main area. He had stripped off his ruined suit jacket and his dress shirt. Bella froze. Dante was standing by a metal sink, washing blood off his torso. His back was a map of violent scars of all shapes and sizes, faded knife wounds, the pucker of old bullet holes. But it was the fresh wound that caught her eye. A long, jagged gash ran across his ribs. He must have cut it on the scaffolding or the glass. It was bleeding sluggishly, dark red, against his olive skin. He hissed as he pressed a chemically soaked rag against it. "You're hurt," Bella said, stepping forward. Dante flinched, spinning around. His hand went instinctively to the gun on the counter before he recognized her. He relaxed, but only slightly. "It's nothing," he said, his voice gruff. "Just a scratch." "That's not a scratch, Dante. It needs stitches." "Silas is busy," he muttered, turning back to the sink. "I'll glue it later." "Let me do it," Bella said. Dante paused. He looked at her over his shoulder. The harsh lighting cast shadows over his sharp cheekbones. "You're a waitress, Bella, not a surgeon." "I've been stitching up my own uniforms for 5 years," she said, walking over to the medical kit Silas had left open. She grabbed a needle, a suture pack, and a bottle of antiseptic. "And my dad, before he died, he had diabetes. I did all his injections. I have steady hands. She didn't know where the confidence came from. Maybe it was the fact that he had saved Mia. Maybe it was the need to be useful, to not just be baggage. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he leaned back against the counter. Wash your hands first. Bella scrubbed up and put on a pair of latex gloves. She approached him. Up close, the heat radiating off him was intense. He smelled of rain adrenaline and the copper tang of blood. "This will sting," she whispered. "I know," he said. He didn't look at the wound. He looked at her. As she cleaned the cut, his muscles rippled under her touch, hard as iron. He didn't make a sound. "Why?" she asked softly, threading the needle. "Why did you really save us? It wasn't just the signal." Dante took a swig from a bottle of whiskey on the counter. "I told you. Your father. You said he was a cryptographer." Bella said, her hand steady as she made the first stitch. "He was a high school math teacher." "He was both," Dante corrected. "Antonio Russo worked for the NSA in the 90s before he went private. He built the encryption for the Black Ledger, the Volkov's entire banking network. Names, accounts, bribes to senators. Everything." Bella paused, the needle hovering. And he grew a conscience," Dante said. "He stole the key. He locked them out of their own money. He was going to turn it over to the feds, but he got scared. He hid it. The Volkovs killed him trying to find it." Bella's breath hitched. "It was a heart attack. They used a digitalis overdose. It looks like a heart attack," Dante said flatly. "I'm sorry, Bella." A tear slipped down her cheek. She angrily wiped it away with her shoulder and continued stitching. "So you want this key too, to steal their money?" "I don't want their money," Dante said, his voice dropping, vibrating in his chest. "I want their heads. The Volkovs killed my brother 3 years ago. If I get that ledger, I can dismantle their organization piece by piece. I can burn their world down." He reached out his hand, covering hers, stopping the needle. His palm was rough, calloused. "But I need to know," he murmured, leaning down so his forehead almost touched hers. "Did he leave you anything? A drive, a code, a sequence of numbers?" "Nothing," Bella whispered, her heart hammering against her ribs. She was trapped between his body and the counter. "Just old books, his vinyl records, and a necklace he gave Mia." Dante's eyes searched hers. He wasn't looking at her like a victim anymore. He was looking at her like she was the only puzzle he couldn't solve. "Think, Bella," he urged softly. "The Volkovs are coming. Vane surviving the restaurant means they have a description. They will tear this city apart to find you. If we don't find that key first, I can't protect you forever." I don't know," she stammered. Dante sighed, pulling back. The loss of his warmth made her shiver. "Finish the stitches," he said, turning his gaze to the dark window. "We move at dawn." Bella finished in silence, tying off the knot and covering the wound with gauze. "Done." Dante touched the bandage. "Good work." He grabbed a shirt from a duffel bag and pulled it on, wincing slightly. Then he walked over to the bank of servers. "Silas," Dante called out, "boot up the facial rec. I want to know where Vane is." Bella walked back to the couch where Mia was sleeping. She sat down, watching her sister's chest rise and fall. She reached into Mia's backpack to pull out her stuffed bear, wanting to tuck it under her arm. Her fingers brushed against something hard and plastic at the bottom of the bag. She frowned. She pulled it out. It was an old Game Boy color, bright purple. It had been her father's. He used to play it on the subway. He gave it to Mia a week before he died. Bella turned it over. Taped to the back battery cover was a piece of masking tape with faded handwriting, high score 8850. She stared at the number. 8850. Her father's birthday was August 8th, 1950. Her heart stopped. She looked up at Dante, who was arguing quietly with Silas across the room. She remembered what her father had told her when he gave Mia the toy. Keep the game going, Ellie. Even if the screen goes dark, the memory is still inside. She had thought he was being philosophical. Bella looked at the cartridge slot. There was a game inside Tetris, but the plastic casing of the cartridge looked tampered with, slightly thicker. Dante? She whispered. He didn't hear her. Dante, she said louder. He turned alert. What? She held up the purple Game Boy. Her hands were shaking again. I think... She swallowed hard. I think I know where the key is. Dante walked over his eyes, locking onto the toy. He took it from her hand as if it were a grenade. He turned it over, saw the tape, saw the cartridge. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. It was the first time she had seen him smile for real. It was terrifying. And it was beautiful. Well then, Dante said, looking at her with a newfound respect. It looks like we're going on the offensive. Crash. The heavy iron loading bay door groaned. A deafening metallic screech echoed through the warehouse. Silas racked his shotgun. Boss, they're cutting through the door. They found us. How? Bella cried. Dante looked at the Game Boy. His face went pale. The toy, he hissed. It has a GPS tracker. Did your father put a tracker in it? No, Bella gasped. But Mia takes it to school. Maybe Vane. Maybe when Vane was threatening me last week, he put something in her bag. Dante threw the Game Boy to Silas. Wrap it in foil, put it in the microwave, kill the signal. But it was too late. The loading bay door exploded inward. A black armored truck rammed through the twisted metal, its headlights blinding them. Get behind me! Dante roared, shoving Bella and the waking Mia behind the heavy steel server racks. He drew 2 guns this time. Welcome to the war, Bella, he whispered. The warehouse was no longer a shelter. It was a kill box. The armored truck that had smashed through the loading bay doors screeched to a halt, acting as a shield for the men pouring out from behind it. These weren't street thugs. These were Volkov's cleaners' men in full body armor, carrying military-grade assault rifles. Suppressing fire, Silas yelled, popping up from behind a crate of ammunition to unleash a spray of buckshot. The noise was earth-shattering. Bullets sparked off the steel server racks where Dante had shoved Bella and Mia. Stay low, Dante commanded, his voice eerily calm amidst the chaos. Cover your ears. He didn't fire blindly. He waited. He watched the flank. When a cleaner tried to circle around the heavy machinery to get a clear shot at the girls, Dante rose. 2 shots, 2 hits. The man dropped, but there were too many of them. Boss, we're pinned! Silas roared, reloading. They're flanking left. Dante looked up at the ceiling. The old textile factory was a maze of rusted pipes and ventilation ducts. He looked at the main junction box on the wall near the intruders, a heavy industrial breaker labeled Warning High Voltage. Silas, Dante shouted, pointing his gun not at the men, but at a fire suppression pipe running directly over the attackers' heads. Make it rain! Silas grinned through the blood on his face. He aimed his shotgun at the ceiling pipe and fired. Psss! A torrent of pressurized water and ancient rusty sludge exploded downward, drenching the attackers and pooling rapidly around their boots. "Now!" Dante yelled. He aimed his pistol at the high-voltage junction box on the far wall. He fired 3 times. The box sparked, smoked, and then exploded. A massive arc of blue electricity leaped from the box, traveling through the water covering the floor. The screams were immediate and horrifying. The 6 men standing in the puddle seized up their bodies, jerking violently as thousands of volts coursed through them. The lights in the warehouse blew out, plunging the room into pitch blackness. "Move!" Dante grabbed Bella's hand. Bella grabbed Mia. They ran through the darkness, guided only by the tactical light on Dante's gun. They didn't head for the exit. They headed deeper into the factory toward the riverside. Dante kicked open a rusted door, revealing a rotting wooden dock battered by the storm. Tied there, bobbing violently in the waves of the Hudson River, was a sleek, black, rigid inflatable boat rib with twin outboard motors. "Get in!" They scrambled aboard. Silas cut the mooring line with his knife. Dante fired the engines, and the boat roared to life, tearing away from the dock, just as the remaining Volkov mercenaries burst through the door, firing uselessly into the rainy night. 2 hours later, the adrenaline had faded, replaced by a bone-deep chill. They were in a new location, a subterranean bunker beneath a legitimate shipping logistics center in New Jersey that Dante owned. It was a concrete box, sterile and cold, filled with monitors and humming hard drives. Mia was asleep on a cot in the corner, exhausted. Bella sat at a steel table, the purple Game Boy color disassembled in front of her. Silas had extracted the modified cartridge and hooked it up to a chaotic array of wires connected to the main supercomputer. "It's encrypted," Silas said, rubbing his eyes. "AES 256-bit, military grade. Without the passkey, it would take 1,000,000 years to brute force it." Dante stood behind Bella, his hand resting on the back of her chair. His touch was the only thing grounding her. "Your father built it," Dante said softly. "He would have left a back door, something only you would know." Bella stared at the scrolling code on the monitor. "He didn't leave me a code. He just said, 'Keep the game going.'" "Think about the game," Dante said. "Tetris. What happens in Tetris?" "Blocks fall," Bella murmured. "You make lines. They disappear." "What was the high score on the tape?" Dante asked. 8850. "August 8th, 1950, Dante recited. "We tried that. It didn't work." Bella closed her eyes, trying to summon the memory of her father. The smell of his pipe tobacco, the sound of his laugh, the way he would tap the buttons on the Game Boy. "Don't just look at the blocks, Ellie. Look at the empty spaces. That's where the solution fits." "The empty spaces," Bella whispered. Her eyes snapped open. "Silas, can you bring up the game map? The actual hex code for the game levels," Silas typed furiously. "Got it. Look at the memory blocks," Bella pointed at the screen. "The zeros, the empty space code. Is there a pattern?" Silas squinted. "Holy shot! The empty code blocks. They aren't random. They're Morse code." "Translate it," Dante ordered. Silas ran a script. Letters began to appear on the screen, forming a phrase. "The saint weeps for the sinner." Dante froze. The room went deadly silent. "What?" Bella asked, looking at Dante's pale face. "What does it mean?" "It's not a password," Dante said, his voice hollow. "It's a location." He walked away from the table, pacing the small room like a caged animal soared. "Jude's Cathedral in Little Italy. There is a statue of a weeping angel in the crypts. The saint weeps. And the sinner? Bella asked. My brother, Dante said, turning to face her. His eyes were dark pools of grief. My brother Matteo is buried in that crypt. Your father didn't just hide the data on the cartridge. He hid the physical key, the biometric drive, in my brother's grave. Bella covered her mouth. My father knew your brother. Your father knew everyone, Dante said. He must have known that the one place the Volkovs would never look, the one place they fear to tread, is the resting place of a Moretti. Dante grabbed his jacket. The look on his face was terrifying. It wasn't just determination anymore. It was a crusade. We have to go to the crypt, Dante said. Tonight. If Vane's team decodes the Game Boy tracker data, they might figure out the origin point. We need to get there first. I'm coming with you, Bella said, standing up. No, Dante snapped. It's too dangerous. It's my father's legacy, Bella argued, stepping into his space, matching his intensity. And I'm the only one who knows the pattern. If there's another trap, another puzzle, you need me. Dante looked down at her. For a moment she thought he would push her away. Instead, he reached out and cupped her face in his hand. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You are infuriating, he whispered. I'm necessary, she countered. God help me, Dante murmured. I think you are. The rain had stopped, leaving New York City shrouded in a thick, eerie fog. St. Jude's Cathedral loomed out of the mist like a Gothic nightmare. It was technically closed for renovations, a convenient cover for the fact that the Moretti crime family donated heavily to the church to keep the basement private. Dante and Bella moved through the shadows of the nave, their footsteps echoing on the marble. Silas had stayed behind in the van to watch the perimeter and guard Mia. Dante led her to a heavy iron gate behind the altar. He unlocked it with a skeleton key from his pocket. They descended a spiral stone staircase into the cool, damp air of the crypts. Rows of stone sarcophagi lined the walls. It smelled of incense and old stone. Here, Dante said, stopping before a white marble tomb. A statue of an angel knelt atop it, its face buried in its hands. Matteo Moretti, 1990-2021. Beloved brother. Dante stared at the name, his jaw working. They killed him in the street, like a dog. Volkov wanted to expand into shipping. Matteo said no, so they put 6 bullets in his chest. Bella reached out and took Dante's hand. He didn't pull away. He squeezed her fingers so hard it hurt, but she didn't flinch. He was the good one, Dante whispered. He was supposed to lead the family. I was just the enforcer, the weapon. When he died, I became this. I became the monster they feared. You're not a monster, Bella said softly. Dante turned to her, his eyes blazing. You don't know the things I've done, Bella, to keep this city in line, to avenge him. I know you saved me, she said, stepping closer. I know you saved Mia. Monsters don't save people, Dante. They consume them. The tension in the air shifted. The grief mixed with something else, something electric. Dante looked at her lips, then her eyes. Bella, he breathed. He leaned in. Bella tilted her head back, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Click. The sound wasn't a kiss. It was the sound of a gun hammer cocking. Dante spun around, shoving Bella behind him, his own weapon drawn in a split second. Emerging from the shadows of the crypt pillars was not a squad of soldiers, but a single man. Detective Marcus Vane. He looked like a wreck. Half his face was bandaged where Dante had hit him with the glass. His arm was in a sling, but the gun in his good hand was steady, and his eyes were manic. "Very touching," Vane rasped, his voice slurring slightly. "Romeo and Juliet, in a graveyard. How poetic." "You're alone," Dante said, his voice dropping to a growl. "Bold move, Marcus." "I'm not alone." Vane grinned, nodding his head toward the entrance. "I have 20 Volkov soldiers upstairs, but I wanted to come down here myself. I wanted to see you bleed." "You followed us," Dante realized. "The Game Boy." "We didn't need the tracker." Vane laughed. "We tracked the girl. Your waitress friend has a cell phone, doesn't she, burner phone?" "Doesn't matter. We triangulated the signal the moment you turned it on to check the time." Bella gasped, patting her pocket. She had checked the time in the van. She had been so stupid. "Give me the key," Vane demanded. "The biometric drive. I know it's in the brother's grave." "Come and get it," Dante challenged. Vane raised his gun. "I think I'll shoot her first. Watch you cry." Vane shifted his aim toward Bella. Dante didn't wait. He didn't calculate. He launched himself forward. Bang! The gunshot echoed like a cannon blast in the confined space. Bella screamed. Dante stumbled, clutching his side, but his momentum carried him into Vane. They crashed into a stone pillar. Dante, despite being shot, was a force of nature. He slammed Vane's head against the stone once, twice, 3 times. Vane's gun clattered to the floor. He slumped unconscious. Dante fell to his knees, gasping. Blood was spreading rapidly across the white shirt under his jacket. "Dante!" Bella dropped beside him, her hands pressing frantically against the wound. "Oh God! Oh God!" "I'm fine," Dante gritted out through clenched teeth. "Check. The statue." "Forget on the statue. You're dying. Check it!" he roared, grabbing her wrist. "If we don't get the drive, this was all for nothing. Do it!" Sobbing. Bella scrambled up. She examined the weeping angel. The hands. There was a small seam on the angel's palms. She pressed her thumbs into the statue's eyes. A mechanism clicked. The angel's hands separated, revealing a small, hollow cavity. Inside sat a silver USB drive with a fingerprint scanner. She grabbed it. "I got it," she cried, turning back to Dante. Dante was struggling to stand, using the tomb for support. "Good. Now, we leave." "You can't walk," she protested. "I have to." Suddenly, Silas's voice crackled over Dante's earpiece, which had fallen to the floor. "Boss, ambush. They're breaching the front doors. I can't hold them." Dante picked up the earpiece. "Silas, bring the van to the south exit. The catacombs have a tunnel to the sewer line. We're coming out." He looked at Bella. His face was grey sweat beading on his forehead. "Bella," he said, his voice serious. "This drive needs a fingerprint to unlock." "Whose?" she asked. "Your father's," Dante said. "Or his blood." Bella froze. "What? Genetics?" Dante coughed. "It will work with yours. You are the key, Bella. Literally." The sound of heavy boots pounding on the stone stairs above them grew louder. The Volkovs were coming down. "We can't outrun them," Bella whispered, looking at Dante's bleeding side. Dante looked at the unconscious body of Vane. Then he looked at the USB drive in Bella's hand. A dark, reckless plan formed in his eyes. "We don't need to outrun them," Dante said. "We just need to survive until tomorrow night." "Why tomorrow?" "Because tomorrow is the governor's ball," Dante said, a grim smile touching his bloody lips. "And all the Volkov heads will be there. If we can't beat them in the dark, We're going to destroy them in the light. He grabbed Vane's fallen gun and shoved it into his belt. "Help me up, Piccola," Dante commanded. "We have a war to win." With Bella supporting his weight, they disappeared into the shadows of the catacomb tunnels, just as the heavy doors burst open and the crypt filled with flashlight beams. They were battered, bleeding, and hunted, but they had the weapon that could kill a kingdom. The grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel was a fortress of wealth and corruption. Under crystal chandeliers, Nikolai Volkov, the head of the syndicate, held court. He clinked champagne glasses with senators and judges, laughing confident that his cleaners had buried Dante Moretti in a sewer tunnel hours ago. But the music stopped. A hush swept through the room, starting at the heavy double doors and rippling towards the stage like a cold wave. The doors swung open. Dante Moretti stood there. He was a vision of death dressed in a tuxedo. His skin was pale sweat beading at his hairline, and his stance was rigid, favoring his left side, where a makeshift bandage was failing to hold back the blood. Yet his eyes burned with a terrifying cold fire. Beside him was Bella. She wore a gown of midnight blue silk, her hair swept up, revealing the elegant curve of a neck that Volkov had ordered snapped. She wasn't hiding behind Dante anymore. She was supporting him, her hand gripping his arm, her knuckles white. "He's alive," a senator whispered, backing away. Dante and Bella descended the grand staircase. The crowd parted, terrified by the palpable aura of violence radiating from the couple. They walked straight to the center of the floor, stopping 10 feet from Volkov. "You look terrible, Dante." Volkov sneered, though his eyes darted nervously to the shadows, looking for his guards. "You should have stayed in the gutter." "I had a delivery to make." Dante rasped, his voice tight with pain. "Return to sender." Volkov laughed. "You have nothing. I own this city." "You own nothing." Bella spoke up, her voice trembling but loud enough to carry. "You stole it, and tonight we're giving it back." She stepped away from Dante, every security guard tensed hands hovering over holsters. Bella didn't reach for a weapon. She walked straight to the AV station near the stage. Silas, appearing from behind a curtain like a ghost, pressed a silenced pistol into the technician's spine, nodding for him to step aside. Bella plugged the silver USB drive into the main console. She pressed her thumb against the scanner. Access granted. The massive projection screen behind the stage, which had been displaying charity photos, went black. Then the code shattered. The black ledger decrypted. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. Bank transfers, emails ordering hits on rivals, photos of bribes accepted by half the people in the room. It all began to scroll at a dizzying speed. The automated script wasn't just showing the room. It was uploading to the FBI, the New York Times, and the Interpol database simultaneously. "Turn it off!" Volkov screamed, his face turning a violent shade of purple. "Kill them!" Panic erupted. The guests scrambled for the exits. Volkov, realizing his empire was disintegrating in seconds, pulled a gold-plated pistol from his jacket. He didn't aim at Dante. He aimed at Bella. "No!" Dante roared. He moved faster than a bleeding man should. He threw himself across the space between them, a human shield fueled by pure desperation. Bang! The shot echoed like a cannon blast. The bullet slammed into Dante's shoulder, spinning him around. He hit the floor hard. Bella screamed, reaching for him, but Dante wasn't done. From the floor, fighting through the shock, he drew the service weapon he had taken from Detective Vane. He didn't hesitate. He didn't monologue. Bang. Bang. 2 shots, Center mass. Nikolai Volkov looked down at the red blooms spreading on his white shirt. He looked at Dante with a mixture of shock and hatred, then collapsed backward. The king of the underworld was dead. Dante's gun clattered to the floor. He slumped over his vision tunneling. Dante. Bella was there instantly, sliding to her knees, pulling his head into her lap. Stay with me. Look at me. The drive. Dante whispered, blood trickling from his mouth. Did it finish? Bella looked up. The screen flashed green. Upload complete. It's done, she sobbed, pressing her forehead to his damp brow. You did it. You won. Good. Dante breathed, his eyes fluttering shut. Now I can rest. No sleeping, Bella cried, shaking him as sirens began to wail outside, growing louder. You promised me, Dante, you don't get to die now. As the SWAT teams burst through the doors, shouting commands, the last thing Dante felt was the waitress's tears on his face, anchoring him to the world. 6 months later. The Amalfi Coast smelled of lemons, sea salt, and peace. Bella sat on the stone terrace of a private villa, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Below in the garden, Mia was laughing, chasing a golden retriever puppy through the olive trees. She was safe. She was happy. The glass door slid open behind her. Dante walked out. He moved with a slight limp, and a cane rested in his hand, but the darkness that had once shrouded him was gone. He looked younger, lighter. Coffee, he said, placing a cup on the table. And the lawyer called. The trust fund for Mia is set. The reward money cleared. I don't care about the money, Bella said, taking the cup. She looked at him. I just care that you're standing here. Dante sat beside her. He reached out, taking her hand. His palm was warm, the calluses of a gunman softening into the hands of a protector. You know, Dante smirked, looking at the ocean. I never did pay the bill at Vittorio's. Bella laughed, leaning her head on his shoulder. I think you covered it. I was thinking, he whispered, turning to face her. I need a new logistics consultant, someone who knows how to handle pressure, someone who saved my life. I'm retired. Bella teased their faces inches apart. Too bad, Dante murmured, because the benefits are incredible. He kissed her. It was a slow, deep kiss tasting of espresso and survival. They had burned the world down to find each other in the ashes, and as the sun set over the quiet sea, they knew the fire had been worth it. Wow, what a ride. From a desperate signal in a restaurant to that final showdown at the governor's ball. Dante and Bella's story proves that sometimes the most dangerous people are the only ones who can save us. It makes you think, if you were in a crowded room and saw someone in trouble, would you recognize the signal? And if you were the one in trouble, who would you want to see standing in the corner? A cop like Vane, or a monster like Dante? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think Dante was a hero or a villain? I read every single comment. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow, so I can bring you more epic stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a part. Thanks for listening, and stay safe out there. See you in the next video.